What is the most heartbreaking thing your child has told you? My son was nearly 4 years old. One day he and my wife went to a restaurant to get a pizza for lunch. There was an elderly man who came in with his shopping cart. He was obviously homeless. He ordered a cup of coffee which the waitress grudgingly served him. It was obvious she didn't want him there. He fished on his pocket and pulled out a hot dog. He ate it slowly, dunking it in his coffee between bites. My son asked why he was doing this and my wife explained that he was homeless and had no money. My son became upset and asked my wife if they could help him. As they were ready to leave, my wife brought him the untouched half of the pizza they had been eating. At first, he refused to take it as he was concerned that my son would not have enough to eat. My wife explained that they bought too much and the waitress would only throw it away if they left it. He took the pieces, carefully wrapped them up and stored them in his basket. Most likely those slices would become his dinner that evening. He thanked them with tears in his eyes when they left. When they got into the car, my wife heard my son crying. When she asked him what was wrong, he looked at her through his tears and answered, "Nothing, mommy. I just have feelings inside myself." How did your first child behave after you'd had your second baby? When I was pregnant, and we asked my 4-year-old son if he had any ideas for a name, he said Beatrix, for his favorite author, Beatrix Potter. We asked what he thought for a boy, and he said, I do not know. I think she will be a girl, and I will call her Beatrix. Fortunately, she was a girl, and so we did indeed call her Beatrix. He was obsessed. In the NICU, he was all over her. "Hi, I'm your brother. Do you want to play with me?" During rounds, he gleefully introduced her to new med students. Her naming by her brother became a regular talking point. She quickly learned that this little person was lots of fun, and she wouldn't sleep if her brother was around. When she came home, he read her all his books. He taught her about plate tectonics and World War I and Jackie Robinson. He built his wooden train tracks around her, and told her she was being a mountain. He told me a couple weeks after she came home, that I never needed to schedule him another playdate, because now he had a sister. They were each other's favorite plaything for years. I now have a 17-year-old who gave his 12-year-old sister a piggyback ride during Meet the Teachers night at his high school this year. My sister has a giant yacht. She begged me to release in her. This all happened 4 years ago. I was 15 and my sister was 19. Our parents had left at around 3 p.m. to go shopping, and wouldn't be back until around 8 p.m. at around 3:30. My sister got in the shower and came out with the most revealing clothes she had, a gray tank top and super short Nike Pro shorts. She then plopped down on the couch next to me and asked if we could watch a movie. I said sure and we started watching Netflix. Throughout the movie, she kept snuggling ever closer to me and at one point was rubbing her leg against mine. I thought her acts were innocent enough until I felt her leg touch my magic wand. I said what the hell? And scooched away, but she kept trying to kiss me. I was obviously disgusted by this and locked myself in the bathroom. I thought about calling my parents to tell them what happened, but I didn't want chaos to erupt as soon as they got home, so I decided against it. Worse, she could have played the victim and made it look like I tried to duck her. I've never told anyone about this until now. I decided to confront her about this, and she said I was talking crazy. I pointed out all the things she was doing, and she remarked that I liked it. I got red, and she noticed. She then pulled me in closer and told me just keep my mouth shut and enjoy what was about to happen. I was a short skinny kid. And she was starting to hit the gym, so she was much stronger than me. I couldn't fight back as she kept winning. Flash forward to today, I am now 19 and she's 23. Our relationship has healed and I forgave her, especially after all the blowies she gave me and this chocolate ring she forced me to eat. Follow for more.
How to use a strict teacher's 2-strike rule to ace a test. Some years ago, my dad was at a several-day course to earn some additional qualifications for his job. On the final day, there was going to be a multiple-choice test to actually pass the seminar. On test day, everyone got settled into place, and the teacher announced that he would not go easy on cheaters. You had 1 strike to be caught trying to copy off of someone else or use a cheat sheet, but if you were caught a second time, you would be immediately thrown out. Now, this teacher was very old-school, strict, and treating grown working people like unruly school children, and my dad does not like that very much. So my dad proceeds to take the test, and it goes pretty well. When he's through with the questions, there's just one left where he's not sure he's got it right, and he has a free strike after all. So my dad yells out into the class, "What's the answer to question 14? Some complete bro elsewhere in the room yells the answer back. My dad fills in the sheet, gets up, walks to the teacher's desk, presumably tries to not trip on the teacher's jaw as it lies on the floor, hands in his test, and leaves the room. To the teacher's credit, he approached my dad afterwards with some begrudging respect. What's one of the funniest things you've ever spent money on? I bought some beefaroni and put it in my friend's mailbox as a prank. He suspected me at first, but I managed to get him off of my tail. Every night, I walked up to their neighborhood and put a can of beefaroni inside their mailbox. After about a month, they called the police to find out who's putting beefaroni in their mailbox. Luckily, the police really didn't care that much and just told them to get a camera. Meanwhile, my friend is telling me all of this from his perspective, right? So I usually know what they do before I strike. So I start covering my face. I have no idea where this camera is, so I can never be too careful. They call the cops, and now the cops are looking for a crippled beefaroni beefaroni bandit. After a solid 3 months, one of the baggers at the store gets word somehow and starts getting suspicious because he sees me buying tons of beefaroni. He confronts me, I tell him the truth, and I shit you not, he starts helping me beefaroni my friend's house. Halloween rolls around and I dress up as Chef Boyardee. I go to my friend's house and say, "Your daily subscription to Chef Boyardee beefaroni has ended. Would you like to renew?" I hear laughter in the background and it's the store clerk. Turns out he recently started dating best friend's sister and that's how he heard. Truth be told, I don't think I've ever been punched harder than when my friend found out.
What's the most horrific act committed by someone you know personally? Guy I went to school with was real calm, very smart, and everyone loved him. He was a gentle person from what I remember. He had lost his mom a couple years before this. She was a nurse and they found her dead in a hospital room during her shift. Unknown causes. Our senior year of high school, dude is a championship wrestler, dominating his grades, and just doing good. He lived with his dad who was a police officer for years and years. At lunch one day he left school and came back. Everything was normal and the day was finished out. His dad did not show up for work that evening, and the police department sent someone to go knock on his door. They found the house ransacked and his dad lying in bed, deceased. Later that night they called my grandmother in for questioning because she cleaned their house once a week. Not much later than that, the guy I went to school with broke down and confessed that he had come home on lunch to ask for money, and he and his dad got in an argument. His dad laid down like normal for his shift, and he took his dad's service pistol, gunned him down, and after realizing what he'd done, he'd freaked out and turned the house upside down to make it look like a robbery, then went and finished the day at school to try to make it seem like he had no clue what had happened. Shocked everyone.
No upgrade for you. So my dad can be in a hole. My dad, being the cheapskate he, bought himself and mom decent seats on a flight and the very back seats for my brother and me. This is a whole move, as my brother is 6'5" and weighs like 240 at this time. He's always been a giant. The poor thing couldn't even sit up straight and had to tuck his legs in. It was to be a 5-hour flight. A very nice flight attendant kept checking up on us. Asked us if we were okay, did we need anything. My brother was very polite and said no, he would manage. The flight attendant kept looking back at us, all worried. She disappears for about 5 minutes and comes back with a big smile. She says she can't stand to see my brother so clearly in pain, and they has a lot of space in first class. She tells us the seats are ours and to follow her to our free upgrade. We pass our parents on the way to the front, and my dad asks the flight attendant where we're going. She explains the situation. He asks if he and my mom could sit with us. In a brief moment of genius, I look at the flight attendant, tell her I don't know these people. My brother agrees, and they're left in their inferior seats next to a mom with a crying infant. We got free in-flight meals. We both got grounded once we landed. Worth it.
Reddit. What is the creepiest true story someone has ever told you? My grandmother's entire life she had a recurring nightmare. In this nightmare, she would be walking down a long dark hallway, turn to the left, open a door, and see something terrible. She'd always wake up before seeing what it was. In her 40s, she, her husband, my dad, and my aunt were on vacation. They booked the hotel at the last minute, so they ended up having to get 2 rooms with 2 twin beds on opposite sides of the floor. My dad wakes up around 3 a.m. and can automatically tell something's not right. He calls out in the darkness, "Dad?" No response. He turns on the bedside light. "Dad?" he says, a little louder this time. Still no response. Getting worried, he slides out of bed and shakes his father. He doesn't wake up. My dad ran down the hotel hallway to my grandma's room and started banging on the door. My grandma worriedly opens the door, and my dad shouts something's wrong with Dad. He leads her down the hallway. A long hallway. To the last door on the left. My grandmother reaches the door, turns to left, and sees her husband dead in bed. Heart attack. She never had the dream again.